The first humans to arrive in Australia came from Indonesia, island hopping until they landed on the sandy beaches of northern Australia some 65,000 years ago. They migrated over the continent, where they would remain isolated from the rest of the world until 1606, when a Dutch explorer made landfall on the shores of Australia. Over 100 years later, in 1770, Captain James Cook mapped the east coast of the continent, kickstarting the European colonization of Australia. Soon, English colonies dotted the coastline, yet little remained known of the vast, harsh interior of Australia.
The ranchers, bushrangers, and miners that embraced the frontier were known as a group of tough individuals who became the basis for the bush identity as an expression of Australian national culture. However, after the end of World War II, economic growth and a population boom led to drastic growth in coastal cities.
Along with this shift, a new national identity was born, the beach identity. Leisure time turned towards crashing waves and sandy dunes as the bush faded into a distant memory and became a mere piece of the puzzle in defining Australia's national identity. Today, Australians across the country maintain the beach identity.
As shown here, 90% of Australia's population lives in urban areas, which are close to or on the coast. Where you live can be intertwined with who you are. Therefore, geographically speaking, this overwhelming majority irrefutably supports a national identity that is based on the sand and waves.
The beach is ingrained in Australian life to the point of being a necessary identifying factor, unable to be separated from memory, history, and everyday life of Australians. From childhood, Australians spend time on their favorite beaches and are regaled at bedtime with children's books that reinforce the beach identity.
Examples of this include Looking for Crabs by Bruce Watley and Australia at the Beach by Max Fatchen.
Sports are a vital piece of Australian culture and identity with high rates of participation in aquatic sports.
Swimming and surfing are both on the list of Australia's top 20 sports and physical activities. The opening ceremony to the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games proclaimed that the modern Australian identity is linked inextricably to the sea.
The beach subculture permeates Australian media and the projected image of the country. Hits such as Bondi Rescue portray Aussies as tan and beach ready at all time. Every year, beaches have visitors coming from all over Australia. Your average Aussie isn't going on holiday in the middle of the bush.
But they are found renting Airbnbs or finding a hotel in popular beachside towns for a weekend getaway, whether it be to a new or maybe an old-time favorite beach.
As European settlers and convicts arrived on Aussia's shores, they began moving inland, into the bush. These legends are stereotypically male, tough and rugged, hard-working outdoors types. Independent and adventurous, capable and strong, but most of all they persevere against all odds, said Australian author Sandy Penn. Even the women had to adopt a masculine identity to survive. How does a distinctly masculine identity apply on a national scale where the population is not exclusively male? How can the rough and tumble, weather-beaten, and wilderness survivor type touted in the bush legend relate to a country where approximately 90% of the population is comprised of city dwellers? Also, literature that reinforces the bush legend promotes a European colonial narrative. Classic Australian stories such as James Vance Marshall's Walkabout and Ivan Southwell's Ash Road reinforce the distinctly Aussie concepts of mateship and conquering the land, but they also contain outdated ideals that fail to ring true with the evolving population of Oz. With around 28% of Oz's population being born overseas, the bush legend cannot resonate enough within the entire population to be considered a national identity. Places like Kalgoorlie still exist that hold on to the time of the bush legend, but most of those are a distant memory now, or a stain that is pushed out of the public eye. When having a convict in your family was en vogue, people wanted to connect to the bush. That is no longer the case. Australia is a multicultural place. People come from all over the world not for their place in the bush, but for the cities, government, and yes, beaches.
The bush legend still fascinates the Australian public. It represents a time when Australia was seen as an uncharted land to be explored and conquered by hardy settlers. But as times have changed, so have the people's perceptions of their country. As generations of Australians have built a strong modern society and passed down their own values and personalities, the Australian national identity has become less about the potential of forging into a new territory and more about taking pride in the lifestyle already shared by current Australians. In this modern world, Australian identity is directly connected to the place that has always been there to greet new arrivals and that remains the most iconic place to come together as a community: the beach.